Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. It is Tech Talk time, and during Tech Talk, we are also going to be doing the market distinction, plus the Tartu offensive, plus a bunch of things. Unfortunately, the a bunch of water broke yesterday, so there was a lot of flooding. We're technically on the second day of the market distinction for one. Good morning, old chief. Nice to see you. We're recording this on the Friday for the Tech Talk on Sunday. So, yeah, the basic thing about a Tech Talk, if you don't know what it is, it's a weekly podcast that we do, and it focuses on War Thunder, but it can really be anything. We basically go through the comments of the previous week and kind of give some thoughts and also some news and things about what's been going on. It's been a frantic week in terms of YouTube because, of course, the first set of leak lists came out. Whether they're true or not, only time will tell. My feeling is they're not, but you know how this is. We did get a bunch of riddles today, so we can also have a look at them and see what's going on. It's Riddler time. You gotta love War Thunder Jigsaw just kind of turning up and having a bit of fun with things. So yeah, we'll do a bunch of different stuff today. We're going to be doing the Tartu offensive and also grinding out the event, which should be quite nice. So yeah, we also stream the Tech Talk on Friday, so if you guys want to see it, that's how we set it up. So, nice to see you, Reaper. Nice to see you, everybody. Hopefully, you're all doing great. So, let's get started on the questions, and let's see what's kind of going around, while we, of course, play some War Thunder Reno and get into it. Hey, Professor X, nice to see you. Hopefully, no emergencies today. The first comment is obviously from Karam-chan, who did the good old timestamp. So thank you for that, Karam-chan. It's very kind of you. Thank you for continuing to do it. Nice seeing Meow Pops and also Logic Master. And I believe Karam-chan now is the proud owner of all of the DLCs, of whether it's Hearts of Iron or even good old Euro Truck, I think was the other thing that he was asking for. So yeah, if you didn't know, if you want to do the timestamps, I can provide games and stuff like that, just to kind of say thank you and sort it all out. So let's get started with the questions. Hey Rusty Sniper, nice to see you TMD2. Hopefully you're doing good. So we have Fired Fuel. Idea for an April Fool's event to have civilian vehicles with weapons mounted on them like Technicals or Cessnas with rockets. Yeah, that could work. It's not really that different from the standard game though, right? With April Fools, you want something which is kind of weird and wonky and maybe like test some things or try some different stuff. If it's just like, I don't know, a Jeep with a recoilless on it, it's kind of boring. I would want something a little bit more frantic or a little bit more crazy than that, but it could still work. I would rather that actually be kind of like an event during the year instead of April Fools, because April Fools is a time of wackiness, and I don't really see you know, civilian vehicles with weapons on them as that kind of crazy. So I would rather have something which is just a little bit more fun and a bit wacko, which is the way to do it. Then we have Toshio. I remember when the BV-238 was nearly unkillable. You could land on the water and become an SPAA. I'd get 3 to 5 kills just floating there. 2 or 3 of us could end a match in however long it took us to arrive to the enemy airfield. That was the first time I got 750 KSL in a match. Yeah, the old bombers is kind of nuts how they used to be. The ones that I remember the most, obviously, is the B-17 back in the day. But another one which is usually forgotten about, which was just kind of crazy back then, was the FC the Farman. Is it the FC 223? I think it's called. The good old Farman, and then also the NC 223. Or it's basically the first French bomber and the second French bomber. Those huge things which have the engines which are on both sides of them, which is actually a really cool setup. How they're like set up and sorted. But the problem with them was you couldn't kill them because they spawned at ridiculously high altitudes. So what this meant was a lot of people would just end matches with them. I remember with the Farman, if you had two bombers, two Farmans in a game, you could end the game in 5 minutes. Because with those 50 kilo bombs, you could destroy all of the with the 50 kilo bombs, you could destroy all of the bases and the airfield within 5 minutes. It was just nuts. Yeah, the Death Star too, but that one didn't have as much killing power in terms of, like, you know, destruction. Stuff like that used to be really good in Simulator, though. Like, people would abuse it quite a lot. Just go around in a circle with just go around in a circle and hammer people in that one. And with the smoke on, that was funny times. That actually birthed a really hilarious thing in Sim. I can't remember what it was called, but it had a funny name. Basically, what simulator pilots did back in the day, and this was a long time ago. Like, we're talking like 10 years ago. They decided on the forums to band together, and whenever there was a bomber in the air in Sim, they would destroy it. Didn't matter if it was an ally, didn't matter if it was an enemy, they would just kill it. And this was because so many people were abusing bombers by using their third-person view. So they could use their third person to see everything, and then just use that to, like, kind of hammer time everything. And yeah, people kind of got sick of it. This actually led to a ton of people getting banned, because, hey, guess what? You're not supposed to team kill in War Thunder. So yeah, it didn't really end well for a lot of the people around the place. But, you know, it kind of, the message kind of went through. I don't think it really changed anything, but it was just one of those parts of War Thunder history, which is kind of interesting. Hey, Splendor Yum Yum, good morning. Hopefully you're doing good today. Nice to see you, SK. Hopefully everything's all good. Yeah, I wish it was just a leaky one, but the thing just burst, SK. It just went for it. So it was more of a water pressure issue, which kind of is annoying. Unfortunate, but here we are. At least it's under control. Can you already do the second stage of the event? No, that happens tomorrow. Nice to see you, Captain Jim Jam. What's the most happy, efficient way of getting the score grind going? I made a video like yesterday or a day ago with all of the information. But yeah, if you really needed to kind of like relax and just chill, playing Bombers was the way to go. It kind of still is in a way. It's not as powerful or easy as it was, but you know, that's how you still do it. So we have Mr. Sneak, or well, Mr. Snack, I should say. I'm of the opinion that bombers are pretty good right now. With rockets being nerfed, I'm able to bomb more effectively. I do want something like Heli PV for bombers. I don't care if the RP is ass, it would be fun. Yeah, it'd be nice to see like some weird events around that, right? Like the idea of having a bunch of bombers, like with missions where you could just go bomb stuff. You get attacked by fighters, and then you have to kind of like fight around them. I think that would be fun and cool. But yeah, it seems like they've kind of gone away from that stuff. They did a Q&A like a few years ago. I can't remember what it was. What is this? Oh yeah, they changed the challenge for the Lag 3 pilots, which is kind of weird. But yeah, they went away from that a while ago, and I don't really know why. I think it's just because people preferred the multiplayer stuff. But I think we're at a point now in kind of War Thunder's history where they could go back and they could kind of do the opposite, right? Like they could be like, okay, we see you like the multiplayer stuff, and you know, we can see what's going on with it. Hey Striker, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. Hey Raspy Pie, nice to see you too. I think bombers mostly are in fine positions. I tell you one thing that really helped out bombers, and I know this sounds really weird, is the addition of the ground and naval modes. There's a lot of vehicles which are like light bombers or light attackers, which don't really make a lot of sense in air modes because, you know, they don't have enough of a payload to do anything, and then they just kind of get clipped by fighters. But in War Thunder now, since you have so much of a variety of modes and also roles that different vehicles can play, of course there's going to be things which are like kind of the best thing and you're just going to play that. But there are opportunities for so many more things, which is really cool. And I think one of the things they could also do is trying to expand the dailies and specials, so it incorporates more different types of vehicles in, you know, bigger ways. But they do obviously have stuff like mass destruction and, you know, air superiority and then hitting bases and stuff like that. But you could do so much more with it, you know. And I think it would be pretty good. Hey, Bacco, nice to see you. Didn't you finish the first stage yesterday? No, the house flooded. I had other priorities, so we're finishing it today. Real life happened, as it goes. And we have Charlie Harris. Hey, Tech. Hello. Do you think it's possible that Gaijin could possibly add, let's see, the Henschel HS-132 jet dive bomber? Since I'm all for paper aircraft and even to an extent prototype aircraft, this would be a very interesting addition to War Thunder. Oh yeah, it would be hilarious. It would be amazing. Now, I've heard some people say that the thing never existed, but believe it or not, there is a photograph of the aircraft. Ooh. You gotta be careful with those. You gotta be real careful with those photographs. And for my own research into the aircraft, it could either carry one 250-pound bomb, well, that would be 250-kilo bomb, or two 30mm cannons for tank busting. But I think for War Thunder purposes, I think they could allow the aircraft to carry both guns and the bomb anyway. For War Thunder purposes. Fair enough. Now, I don't know enough about the aircraft to really say whether it existed or not. Unfortunately, there's a lot of vehicles that people think existed but didn't. And they get confused when looking at other photographs, or because people Photoshop stuff a lot. There's a very iconic picture of a T-34 hull, which has an 88mm on it, like a flak 88. And this was photoshopped, like, I don't know, like 15, 20 years ago. And it makes the rounds every so often because people are like, oh my god, look at this. The Soviets put a flak 88 on top of a T-34. Isn't that really cool? And I mean, yeah, if it existed, but it didn't, right? So you got to be super careful with these things, and also just getting vehicles confused is another part of it as well. The fact is that I've had so many conversations about the Kranwagen, which is a vehicle that never existed in its full form. It's a Swedish heavy tank which looks very similar to the Surbasse or the Sublinder from the okay. It's very similar to the Surbasse or the Sublinder from the French, with a insane auto-loading system that was supposed to load like it was supposed to load, what was it, like one round every 2 seconds. But the problem with the vehicle is it never was built. The turret was never finished, and well, never even started. The hull was built, right? And they even tested the STR V103's gun and kind of weapon system on it, but it never really went to full completion. What ends up happening is people will go, "Hey, look at this vehicle! It's the Kranwagen. Isn't this really cool?" And they'll send a picture of the Emil, and the Emil wasn't even finished. It was a mock-up idea, which was kind of the predecessor to the Kranwagen. But because of how on social media works, and because people either don't know the full information or haven't actually read the thing and just watched kind of a YouTube video or whatever it is, it's all over the place, right? So I'm always super skeptical when it comes to what is real and what isn't in terms of those things. With the book that I usually go for, which is pretty good when it comes to kind of German stuff, is the book by William Green. It's Warplanes of the Third Reich. So it goes through pretty much every single iteration of every single aircraft that the Germans built. It's very good at the information that it has and the way that it's set up. So yeah, I'll have a look at that. If it's the vehicle I'm thinking of, it's the vehicle that the Ju-87 was supposed to become, right? No, not the Sturemil, the Emil. So EMIL. It's a Swedish kind of heavy tank autoloader project that never got anywhere. The Sturemil existed, yeah. Hey Sneaky, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. So yeah, basically, stuff like that. Of course, when they start going into like fully into the paper project stuff, of course it'll exist, right? The only question is when they'll do it, and there's a long time before that. And I think they're just going to prioritize. They're going to prioritize filling tech trees, right? Before they start throwing stuff like that in. So it should be pretty nice. I think what's more interesting than a vehicle like that is it the Ju-287, which was also the EF-131 or 141. It was a vehicle that had six jet engines on it in kind of a triangular setup. And what they ended up doing was having forward swept wings as kind of a recon slash bomber aircraft. Now, the vehicle didn't really do anything in German service because the war ended. But what the Russians did in their kind of version of Operation Paperclip is they nicked the chief designer of the Ju-287 and took him back to Russia, and he ended up building. I'm pretty sure it was called like the EF-131 or the EF-141. And so the Russians had one that was made after the war, and the Germans had one made during the war. And yeah, it's just a really cool aircraft. So I would have a look at that one. But yeah, there's a ton of really random German designs which are really fun. You know, the P1101s as well. Like those types of vehicles are always interesting to look at. One of the ones that I am personally a huge fan of too is all of the vehicles that they made, which were, well, they didn't make them, but they they were going to make them, and a lot of them come down to hitting other planes. So there was a idea from the Germans. Hey, Lorico, nice to see you. There was an idea from the Germans to create this well, jet. It's a rocket basically. It had a rocket engine, and it was shaped like a arrow tip. So like kind of the bit that would pierce the animal. So just like a straight kind of like triangular point. And the idea was the pilot would fly above the B-17 formation and then dive down through one of the B-17's fuselage. So basically using it as a spear to cut the B-17 in half. And then the pilot would kind of parachute out and kind of go from there. So yeah, and the idea is the plane would break apart. You would be able to kind of recover the engine and maybe recover the general shape of it, put them back together, and then do it again. Now, guess what? That didn't actually work, and also they never kind of finished it. But the actual designs of that one, right? I have a ton of like books. A lot of them are in PDF form, and one day, like on the stream, I'll check like how the legality of it is, like if I'm able to show them or not. But what we'll do is we'll go through them, and I'll show you just some insane ideas, like not just like Blom and Voss, but like there were so many of them that were up there just doing crazy things, and it's just so fun to read about. Like I don't know how else to put it. The Japanese were on it as well, and obviously, you know, the Americans and everybody else was going a bit loopy with it too. Like everyone was trying to get ahead, right? So they were just doing crazy stuff to try and make it so they would win the technological race, and that meant sometimes just thinking out of the box. Like for the what do you call them, for the British, they created a wagon wheel which had rockets to kind of propel it, you know, forward. And then the idea was it would skim along the water on D-Day, and then it would fire itself onto the beach and like hit a bunker and explode. Now, just like think about how ridiculous that is, like in its concept, and how that could actually work. And hey, guess what? It didn't work because they couldn't get it to like go in a straight line. The physics required to try and make it go in a straight line was just not possible at the time. But it's just hilarious to think about. Like that's, you know, that was one of the nuts things. And yeah, some things worked, like the bouncing bomb worked. Obviously a lot of Hobart's funnies worked. Like there was a lot of ideas that did, but some of the absolutely insane ideas are fantastic to read about. So yeah, it's it's something that's definitely fun to look at. And yeah, well, I mean, as I said, we'll probably sit down at some point and kind of go through it, and if I'm allowed to, I might have to ask permission from different authors, because obviously these are books which have been written by them. But yeah, nice to see you, Teddy. Hopefully you're doing good. The The area is contained, is probably the best way of putting it. So the simple fact is the what do you call it? We had some flooding. The flooding has been sucked. The water in the area has been turned off. And we are now at a point where we're trying to make sure that it's okay. And yeah, should be fine. So the plumber came, paid exorbitant amounts of money. Wish I'd become a plumber. And then yeah, it'll be all sorted and done in, a short time. Luckily when we came to this area, one of the key things to do is obviously to try and make some friends with specific people. So yeah, it's all good. How do I record? I use OBS or Streamlabs Desktop or Audacity. So we have Insane Robert. Nice to see you, Insane Robert. Hello. Hello, Tech. My only gripe with bombers in War Thunder nowadays is that many of them... Oh, 2 seconds. Whoop. Oh, dear. Is that many of them became too fragile. It's enough to receive 1 to 2 direct shots, and you'll see your tail and wing... You see your tail and wing flying off and you're dead. Not all of them. We have exceptions like the BA-6, which is still crazy survivable, and deadly 23mm turrets like the Tu-4 has. But I flew recently the B-17s and the Lancasters, and their damage model seems to be fragile. And the strongest section of the tail always gets blown off in a couple of hits, like it's made of TNT. Not the rudder and elevation section, but the tail boon itself. The tail boon itself, like it's been hit by a flak 88, but it's instead been hit by a few shots of 50 cal. I agree with that, yeah. They do just kind of explode at a ridiculous degree. Yeah, I should actually get involved in... What? I don't know how that guy hit me, though. Except from the broken models that are hard to kill and have crazy defenses. Many bomber models... Many bomber models are more rare nowadays in matches, especially the World War II British ones with weak 7.7 or 7.62 turrets. I'd recommend to improve the DMs of the affected models on the fuselage and encourage fighters to aim for critical spots in order to shoot down a bomber. Like the engines and fuel tanks, the cockpits and service controls of the planes, and make the rest of it easy to destroy as it should be. If this leads to some BR readjustment, I'm not against it. But I'd love to see those DM models improved. There are still discrepancies, like how the PE8 sits lower in BR, while the others are higher in BR, although the PA is outperforming many bombers in several ways. I do find, right, so bomber BRs are very much all over the place. Hey Trex, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Salty John. The simple thing about the PE8 is it still hasn't been subject to the BR changes that it needs to. And this is something that we've talked about a lot, right? Like there's a lot of vehicles in the game that right now need that setup where they are going to be different in BR based on what game mode they're playing. So for example, the top BRs got affected by this, so the CAS aircraft, right? Which is great, you know, that's what we need. And that's what needs to be sorted. But the problem is those changes haven't come to the mid-tiers yet. Now, the PEA in air modes is not very strong, like, at all. If you actually think about it, right? Like, the PEA is not crazy strong. Hey, Justin, nice to see you. What is crazy strong is its effect on conquest battles in ground and also naval arcade, and probably realistic, but mainly naval arcade, yeah? That's the area where it really takes over and is really powerful. So for me, when it comes to looking at its power level, I think it's in a weird place like a lot of bombers are because of that issue, because of the fact that, you know, they're very good at one thing and one thing only, or maybe like one or two things, but they struggle in like all of the other areas, which sucks. The survivability thing I don't know, like there was an update, right? Hey, so Snippy, nice to see you. There was an update way back in the day, like 1.27 or maybe something like that. And that update broke the game. It made bombers insanely survivable to a point where you had to dump like whole magazines of ammo into them to destroy them. And also it made it so if you crashed the bomber into the ground, you instantly made 20k RP. Now this got hotfixed very, very quickly, right? But it happened, and I remember playing it and how ridiculous the moment was. Hey Lafouche, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Justin, and also Lucas. Hopefully you're doing alright. I'd go for the F4J right now, Lucas. I think it's a better proposition. So I remember those times, and I remember how annoying it was to destroy certain bombers. I'm not against the idea of buffing certain bombers' damage models. The Wellington always comes to mind, but they did at least fix that ridiculous bug with the Wellington, where you could shoot it in the back turret and the pilot would decide to just go to sleep. Very annoying that. But I also think that balancing based on kind of this metric is a really, really dodgy way of doing it. Basically, balancing by survivability. So if a vehicle is underperforming, you give it better survivability, right? And then when you give it better survivability, it goes up in BR because nothing can kill it, and then the other thing happens again, right? And it's just more about matchup and what guns that they're using. If you think about vehicles that have really benefited from this type of idea, the SU-25, right? The SU-25 for the longest time just was crazy tanky. Still is. Like, it's still crazy tanky, but nothing compared to what it was. And there was no reason for it to be as tanky as it was. Same with, like, a bunch of other aircraft in the game. And it just made it so the vehicle, just to kill the damn thing, you just needed so many resources, especially due to the fact that it could survive because of its countermeasures and also its maneuverability. So it just became very tough to play against and very annoying, and that's what people found. And when bombers in general become that, right? When they become annoying to face, or strike aircraft become annoying to face, they get spammed. And when they get spammed, people only see those vehicles and they really don't like facing them. And it just gets to a point where it's super annoying to face them and it's the only thing you see, and then it becomes a mess, right? This happens in like bombers right now. So I'm always worried about things like that. I generally think, it's important to keep bombers, usable, and I think a lot of them still are usable. I think they're a lot more effective than people give them credit right now. But at the same time, it is something which could at least be looked at. I think it'd be more interesting to look at bomb loads and moving around, Yeah, it very much depends on many things, Teddy, right? Like when it comes to hitting them. Like for me, one of the things so one of the skills that's really important, at least for me when it comes to War Thunder, when shooting bombers or shooting planes, is actually not just aiming for center mass. So what you'll find, and this is just a precision thing, right? So you may not realize it, but when I shoot at planes, I don't aim for like the center of the plane. I feel like a lot of people do. Usually I aim for like the cockpit or the engine or the wing, depending on the angle that I'm firing at. And on bombers, usually what I do is I just hammer down into like the cockpit of it and then kind of go from there. So, but it's not the easiest thing to do. It's just something that requires just a little bit of training, but you get there eventually. Yeah, it must be crazy trying to balance over 2,000 vehicles. It's kind of a suffering from success thing though, right? The toughest decisions must be when you have like similar vehicles from like you remember the M48, like the German one, when they wanted to put that down to 6.7. That must have been a really tough decision. I do not envy the person who had to make had to make that decision. Like you're a person who you basically have to say, so this vehicle over here is exactly the same as this vehicle over here, but because of its lineup, it's not functioning very well and functioning awfully. And trying to explain that to people it seems to be impossible, you know? Like it's just crazy. Feel kind of bad for people who have to do that stuff. Alright, so then we have Flyboy Joe. As an idea to get people to play the game, make an event that if you grind out 100,000 mission score in a week, you get one vehicle coupon of the past event vehicle of your choice, but it excludes the IS-7 and 279 as well as the 100. And lol, Gadget would never do this. Yeah, because they don't get anything out of it. Like, like, what's the value proposition of that? Okay, so you get people who'll grind like 100k in a week, and then they'll burn out, and they won't wanna play they won't wanna play anymore for like a month, and then they know you're gonna do that style of event, so they're just gonna wait for that event again instead of doing the other event. Like, the whole point of the battle pass and these events and the way that they're set up is to keep you continuously playing. And the way that you do that is pretty simple, right? You make it so with these events, they are doable for the people who want to do them, but they are slightly harder than the average. And then you make them consistent so people can do them all the time. That's what keeps people playing. The way that they have the event structure set up right now is way more effective than the way that they did it previously, right? The way that they did it before, people could like take breaks from doing the events, right? So you do the winter event, take a break, wait for April Fools, do that, then take a break and then do the summer event, right? And then the only people who weren't taking the breaks are either people who are looking forward to the update content, or people who are doing the battle passes. So now, with the way that they do it, it's like a constant cycle. So if you're a person who likes to collect everything or wants to get everything, you have to play all the time. If you give somebody a button which basically goes, okay, you just grind out X amount of score and you can get whatever vehicle you want from the last year, you'll see an instant drop in people actually playing the events. You know, well, don't focus too much on the 100k. Focus more on like the idea, right? Because 100k means different things to different people. I could grind out 100k in a day if I wanted to, but for other people that is like a week, right? Because they can only play for like an hour or two a day. So yeah, it's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, I think in general the premise of it, if you wanted to do it as an addition, like a bonus to what's there before, okay, like maybe it could be an end of the year. Hey, if you missed anything, and you know, if you want to recoup on something, maybe you've done enough for the events, maybe you could get something out of it, right? That's kind of like what the loot boxes are right now. But if it's just like, nah, well, you can just grind this instead of grinding the events, they're not gonna go for that, right? Like it's just how it goes. Hey, Basti, nice to see you. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna be a yes, unfortunately, because the value is just not there from the company point of view. And whenever you're thinking of an idea, you got to think about that, right? Because it's the first step in the door of these decisions. Hey, Jake, nice to see you. Well, your suggestion made a lot more sense, Teddy, because it wasn't just, you know, yours was the idea of repeating stuff if you'd missed it in the past, right? I think generally breaks are good, Lafouche. You know, I think everybody should take breaks. Then we have Sci-Fi Dude. Make a bomber game mode. 2 lanes, most payload on target wins within the time limit. And the time limit, interceptors and fighters are the only ones allowed to cross the divide. No. That would not work, unfortunately. So right. Number 1, you'd only see 1 bomber ever used because it would be the most efficient. Number 2, it would be taken by bots. Number 3, the other thing, which would be a huge issue, is just spawn camping. Like, the people would just spawn camp. Like if I'm in a fighter and I can cross the divide and nobody else can cross the divide, right? Apart from me, then all I have to do in my vehicle is just sit there and basically just kill anything that spawns. I don't know how many of you guys have played a decent chunk of Air Arcade. So I used to play a decent amount of it back in the day. I'm obviously playing it here, but that's just to get the page of history done. It is kind of chill to play though, especially at the lower tiers. But the interesting thing that happens in Air Arcade, and it happens a lot, is you'll have these guys. This happens like near the start of the jet tier, but it also happens in lower tiers too with stuff like BF-109s. They'll just climb for the bomber spawn. And what that means is whenever a bomber spawns, they're instantly on them and just destroy them straight away. And there's no way you can stop them because where you spawn is maybe like 2,000 meters below them. So even if you're in a fighter, you can't counter them. And they just kill you over and over and over again. Right? It sucks. It's really, really annoying. And there's nothing you can do about it. And that is a huge problem, not just in arcade, but also in any other game mode that has a recurring spawn system. The other problem you're going to run into is team composition. If everybody wants to, you know, go into bombers and, you know, attack the base, then you're going to kind of be out of luck if the other team goes into fighters. That's why we have limitations and stuff like Realistic about what type of vehicles you can bring in all the time. So yeah, there's a lot of things to work out there. Let's just put it like that. The other thing is fun factor. Do you think it's fun factor for bombers just to go in a straight line, bomb a base, and then go home and then do it over and over again? I mean, maybe it's some people, you know, maybe they can relive their fantasies of getting, you know, shot at by 88 millimeters or something. But I mean, generally I don't find that too fun. There's a squadron that was notorious for going to enemy air spawns in AB. People would just leave the game if facing them. I mean, fair enough, but I don't know. Asked some questions and got some interesting answers. That might be funny to look at. I'll mention it again later when you're done with the tech talk. Yeah, we'll have a look. There's a few things we've got to have a look at today, actually. Bunch of stuff going on. Pretty fun. So, yeah. I don't think there needs to be a specific bomber game mode. We'll have to see what happens going forward. So then we have Jerry. What do you think about the high-res texture packs War Thunder that you can download on Steam? Are they worth downloading? Also, I'm still waiting for Britain to get the M22. Pretty sure they even used it more than the Americans. Well, the M22 replaced the Tetrarch, right? Like that's what it did. And the high-res texture pack is the Ultra HQ stuff, right? So it's what I run. If you have the space for it, like if you have the... Hey, Sussy Penguin, nice to see you. If you have the space for it, like if you have the hard drive for it, then yeah, go for it. You know, it makes the game looks beautiful. I think it takes a little bit more processing power on your PC end, but generally it makes the game look stunning. Basically upgrades all of the aircraft to much higher resolution and makes everything look really, really nice. The M22 in British service, I'd be very surprised if they add that. I think it's more likely they add the Harry Hopkins, right? And also some of the other variants around that stuff. There isn't really a need for Britain to get the M22. Like, it already has some light tanks at low tier. It already has some pretty interesting vehicles at low tier that kind of fill the role of the M22. The only thing you'd get from the M22 is people trying to meme, right? But you can already meme with a bunch of vehicles too, so should be pretty good. It's going well, Jake. Waiting on confirmation that it's okay to use, so that's basically what we're waiting on now. See what goes on with it. I already have the F-14 A and B, and I'm not sure that I should get the Iranian Tomcat, because even if I ground out all the stages, I'll have to buy at least 2 or 3, so I won't be home. I don't think for 3 new weapons I should get it, so what do you think? Well, don't get it then. Like, I don't know. If you've already decided you don't want to get it, then don't get it. The question you have to ask yourself is, are you going to be of the same opinion in a year or two's time? And if you are, then don't get it. What I like to do in situations where I don't know what to do is I flip a coin. But usually that's probably not the best way of doing these things. But it is the way to kind of take my brain away from worrying about it at the end of the day. Hey, Mr. Uber Cactus, nice to see you. The grind goes very well. Basically, no way. Basically, we are doing some air arcade. We're doing some air arcade to do the pages of history. And also to do the tech talk. So yeah, that's the basic reason. Do the unexpected. Why arcade can be very fun. What is he doing? Is he a madman? Sorry. Oh, good. Kinda happy there's an air event. There's hardly any cast in ground mode. Yeah, people be chilling, you know? Why not RB? Because I don't have to concentrate too much in AB. Whereas in RB I have to concentrate. So then we have Flyboy Joe again. I looked at the Gaijin store for War Thunder, and the best-selling packs, the Canadian Leopard 2A4M and the TED UE1. I wonder how much Gaijin has made from those since they were added. Yeah, I mean, if they wouldn't sell these things if people didn't buy them, right? I mean, I think honestly, it's generally not great to purchase these things, especially if you are a new player. But you know, obviously, people like buying them, so they're gonna keep selling them. And I'm sure they've made a lot of money off of them, you know? The simple fact is, you know, Gaijin does make a decent chunk of money from people, and as a business, they seem to do very well. If you have a look at a lot of their kind of staff and also their just events and different things that they've invested into, like other games that they're publishing and stuff, they really have expanded quite aggressively the last few years. And it's cool to see, you know, because it means one or two things for a business to do stuff like that. So number one is they have a lot of money to throw around because they're pretty successful and they're looking to diversify their finances to become more sustainable. That's obviously very good, very positive. Number two is the opposite, where they're having to take chances because of the fact that their financial status is not fantastic. Therefore, they have to downscale and try different things to once again try and find the golden goose. Now, if you have a look at, you know, War Thunder and also Enlisted and also a lot of their other products, that the second one can't be true because otherwise they would be downscaling their they'll be downscaling the people that work for them. They would be, you know, doing a lot less in terms of hiring. But when you look at like their website, they're trying to hire a ton of developers and they're trying to hire a ton of different things. So like it's one of those which is really cool to see. So with products like the Leopard, the reason why they sell stuff like that is pretty simple. Because people buy them, even though they probably shouldn't. But yeah, it's it's just kind of how it is. You know, I think there are much better things to buy in War Thunder than that. But to each their own, you know. People want to taste that top tier experience. They want to complain about it, and they want to have a bit of fun. So it's just how it is. You know. Best tier 3 playing for USSR? The LA7 probably. Yeah, I think in general it's I used to say we're in kind of like a golden era for War Thunder because it felt like it was at its peak in terms of, you know, people playing it, people having fun with it. But the peak has lasted for 5, 6, 7 years. Like when you have a look at the Steam charts, or you have a look at any of the other charts that War Thunder's a part of, it's insane, its longevity. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see. Sweet dreams, Salty John. Have a nice rest, man. How's the F-104s? The early ones are very good. The later ones have inherent issues. Then we have, let's see, Last Red Star. Hey, Tech. Hope this week is going well. Nothing too crazy, I hope. Well, you know, yeah, just a few crazy things so far. It's been very fun to make YouTube stuff this week, and also the last few weeks, just on stream playing some different things and you know, having a bit of fun. It's been nice. Personal life stuff. There's been a few things which are like, woo, you know, they're a little bit all over the place. But what can you do? Like, they'll get better as they always do. I finally spaded the Bayern and the Baden for Germany. I was wondering if you could suggest another blue water tech tree to grind and play out. I've been eyeing up the Japanese fleet, but I've been a bit worried starting a new tree. The German blue water wasn't really a good experience. Everything between the 4-3 to 6-0 felt very squishy. I would get HE spammed off the respawn point and would lose half my crew within 2 minutes. Yeah, that sounds about right. Instead of grinding out a new tree, I've just been playing the Bayern over and over, even after spading it. I wish Gaijin would implement an RP bank, only usable for that tree, because I could use that for future additions to the game. I mostly enjoy battleships and naval, but I wouldn't mind trying out other things if the experience isn't poor. Well, number one, since they're bringing in those nation RP bonuses, that'll make grinding the other tech trees easier, right? So that's awesome. That's really cool. And it'll mean that you transitioning into another tech tree will be easier. If you've only played Germany, you need to give America a go. The American destroyers are the best. Their light cruisers are the best. Their heavy cruisers are the best. The only place they're not the best in is the battleships, which isn't the vast majority of the tech tree. So you'll have a fantastic time playing them. You'll have a great time moving around and going through them. The survivability is there, and if you're not as survivable as you want to be, you got the firepower. They're just insane to play. Out of the tech trees I've had the most fun with, it's probably Britain and America. Japan has some really nice torpedoes for some of the destroyers, but you're going to run into the same thing with their cruisers that you've run into with the Germans. They just have no survivability. There's only one cruiser that I found which has any survivability for them, and it's the Haguro. All of the other ones, you have to rely on your mobility and swinging around and moving around, and also being able to... what's the word? Also being able to use your torpedoes. Can you visually explain the upcoming XP bonuses? Can I visually explain them? If you have a end of the line vehicle, which is a rank 8 in a tech tree, right? Then that means in the other tech trees that you don't have that, of the same type of vehicles, so let's say aviation, you get percentage bonuses to your rewards for 3 battles per day for each of the nations. That's pretty much how it goes. In the data mine video that I did last night, I actually showed the bonuses and also go through exactly how it's going to work, at least from what they've said. So you can check it there. Hey, Peter, nice to see you. Go ahead. But yeah, I would say America and Britain are the two that I've enjoyed the most in Blue Water Naval. So yeah. So then we have NYC Kuyaks or Koyaks. Earlier today I saw an A4 SB with 1.24 tons bombed. No other things done. He had over 9k score, hovering over score, only showed base damage and base destroyed. I asked how he did it, but someone else replied that they might be using napalm bombs, and napalm bombs score farmers in sim. Well, you can't use rockets anymore, and napalm got buffed recently, so yeah, probably. It's either going to be napalm or just standard bombs on the A4. The reason why he's able to do it, though, is because the event's on, so people are grinding the event. By the end of the line, do they mean any vehicles at rank 8? They mean vehicles at the end of their research line. But that is something that needs to be confirmed, because there was a leak list of them, but it wasn't tied to anybody. it was just tied to a random account on the forums, which basically listed all of the end-of-the-line vehicles. Whereas if you have a look at what Gaijin have said previously, that isn't what they've said. They said it would be some end-of-the-line vehicles, but not all of them. So we'll have to see what goes on with that. Couldn't have been standard bombs. I've been using standard bombs, had over 5 tons bombed and only 2k score. Well, I mean, the best way you can do it is try it, right? So try the napalm and see what happens. So what I buy, I sell loot boxes. I have 1,400 vehicles and 85 million SL. What good is it to hoard SL and not use it? I buy vehicles in batches during the anniversary and SL sale. I can make several million in a few hours playing naval, so I can get it all back before the next SL loot boxes come. I get a ton of free vehicles in the process, some coupons and stuff too, so I can get premium packs later on. It's low chance, but it's almost one vehicle every 50 million SL spend, which is great odds. Well, it's great odds because you've convinced yourself it's great odds. But I'm right. The issue with the loot boxes is the same issue with every single other loot box, right? The idea of it is so you spend more than you should on the same ticket item, right? And it also is something that ends up being used instead of just bringing event vehicles back or bringing other things back. So it means that instead of a more standard permanent way of getting those vehicles, you completely lose that and instead just have to deal with loot boxes. And that's it. So it isn't the loot box itself that is the problem, even though it is part of the problem because addictions exist. The major problem with it is that it means that other forms of ways of kind of bringing back like vehicles and other stuff like that just no longer exist. They're just gone, right? The whole point of loot boxes is to get you addicted to gambling. That's it. There is no other thing about it. There is no hidden message. You know, it is not good for you. It is not designed to make you, you know, feel good about yourself. It is there for you to justify what you're doing and to forget that other functions can exist. And it's awful. You know, it's terrible. And you know what? Well, and welcome to the new reality. That's basically where we are in terms of War Thunder. Because you now have all the people who defend them. So, it's just how it is. We'll just keep going around in circles. So then we have Red Ned. About the Saber BR changes, I feel you focus more on statistically insignificant their games would have been in the grand scheme of things. Also, how Gaijin refuted their claims, both of which are true, but many do not believe. Yeah, because people just think Gaijin lies about everything for some reason. I think it's better to focus on the timing of when they wanted to play it a lot. I remember it happening. Gaijin wanted to change it, community said no. Gaijin said okay, we'll monitor it and get back to you the next BR changes. 4 guys play it, knowing Gaijin already wants to change it. Next BR changes, Gaijin announced to increase the BR despite player feedback. Let's also not forget, several times prior to this specific BR change, Gaijin had delayed BR increases until the next set of changes. These guys already knew the Saber would likely only be delayed just once. Now, if you want to see a true main character, look no further. Keys on the markets used to sell out. Now they don't let them go below 10k. I like to believe this was due to me selling a key for 10 Gaijin. I mean, maybe, but that is quite funny that you're able to do that, Red Ned. Yeah, that whole thing's true that they did talk about it before. But the thing that, as I said, got me during that whole process, it wasn't the fact that the vehicles were changed in BR. It was the fact that they were changed alongside all of the other Sabers. So their whole idea was the fact that the reason why that one was going up in BR, compared to all the rest was because they had played it, and the statistics, even though it was a worse vehicle, it was going higher because of them, was completely false, because at the end of the day, all of the sabers moved up. So even like disregarding like the rest of it, their initial premise of what they tried to do was just wrong. It just didn't work. So it's just how it goes. The whole thing was just silly though, and has been many times in War Thunder's history, which is the idea that individuals feel they just have way more control than they actually do. It's really hard to actually... I would love... So, in one of the covert discussions that Gajin did recently... hey, Thunder Wizard, nice to see you. I haven't opened any of the chests yet. We're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to open 80 million's worth, because the video got over 1,000 likes. So the thing about... the thing that I would love them to do more of those covert disclosure things, but put in more facts about what's kind of happening in the game. Because I don't know how many of you saw, but in the last set of them, they actually put in some kind of like unique things that they track. So how many like nukes were dropped, how many nukes were shot down before they got dropped, and like a bunch of stuff like that. And I think in general that stuff is really interesting, because it kind of shows how much, how often these things actually happen compared to what people think happen with them, right? So yeah, it's one of those things that's really cool to see, and kind of destroys the whole like main character syndrome thing. So we have Organic Chemistry Junkie. Regarding the talk about a continuous large combines mode, why not start fairly small and add player tank spawn points to existing Area C maps? The maps are too big. That's why. Whenever an Area C ground engagement begins, player ground engagement begins. Player tank spawn points and one central cap appear at the battle location. When a given engagement is decided, the spawn points are disabled and replaced by ejection points where you J out an undamaged machine without deaths. Same story for naval vessels on a map-by-map basis. A map like Denmark would have blue water and frigate spawns, but a map like Zhengzhou would only allow small boats. No, pretty much as simple as that. I don't think that would be a good idea. Not really interested in mixing up the different game modes. And also, once again, it just leads to a ton of imbalance in the game itself. You're still limited to a 16 versus 16 scenario, right? So, depending on how many people actually want to kind of sit down into the ground battles, it's not really going to go very well. The other part of it, which absolutely sucks, is the fact that you're going to be forcing air players who only like to play air sim, because most of the guys who I know who actually do play air sim and not just the guys who kind of like farm the events in air sim, which unfortunately is becoming the majority. The way that they play the game is they only play air. They don't care about ground. So what you're doing is you're setting up a mode where if somebody wants to play ground, then a lot of the time they just have to wait for it to like turn up, so they won't even get involved in the air fight. Then the other part of it that'll happen is you'll have people who don't want to play, that area, and they just want to kind of go around. So you'll just have a dude who, spawns in the bottom, and he'll just be facing a bunch of AI. He'll kill them all and then win the battle and then move on. Just like you had in World War mode. It wasn't very fun. The other problem you have is the fact that air battles or air maps are not the same as ground maps. So the level of fidelity that is in a ground map is very different to the level of fidelity that is in an air map. So they look completely different from each other, and they have a completely different set of they have a completely different set of requirements in terms of graphical fidelity and also just kind of how things look. So if you plonked a bunch of tanks into an air map, it would look awful. Like everything would be super blocky. It would look just really bad to play, like you were playing, well, let's be honest, like a game from 15 years ago. So like, yeah, it just wouldn't work very well. I don't think people would enjoy it. They would just wonder why it looks awful. Hey, Mr. Googie, nice to see you. Yeah, the grind's going well. Can't be mad. Everything's going pretty good with it. So yeah, they could give it a go, but as I said once again, this would be a really easy thing to do if somebody wanted to take up the mantle and wanted to make the map. So, as I said, let's make ideas. Let's take these ideas and make them practical. Somebody build it and then play it and test it and see how people feel about it. Go ahead. It's always the best thing to do. Is it normal to have an almost 3-minute queue in arcade? Depends what area you're playing. So we have Kenzie Boutillier. We should be able to grind whatever tree we want with whatever vehicle we want, as long as they're in the same nation. Is there a genuine reason why I can't use the K50 to grind out the SU-27? Like, I get it'll make it easier to get to top tier, but you still don't have the skill to back up that shiny new jet. And if you do have the skill, you probably got to top tier in another nation. I don't see why it shouldn't be possible. Money is one of them. If you only buy one vehicle per kind of tech tree, or per nation, then you're not going to buy another one, because you can grind everything with that one vehicle. Thank you for the membership, Trex. That's very kind of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. It's very much appreciated. So, yeah, money is a factor. They would rather you buy 4 premiums instead of 1. The next thing is the different amounts of research that you get in different modes. So if you've been around for a long time, right, then you'll know that it's much easier to get research for aircraft in air than it is for ground. So the level of ground research that you get, not just for aircraft but for ground vehicles, is a lot lower than it is for air, because it's seen that it's harder to get kills in air than it is in ground modes, which is fair. You know, when you think about like aerialistic, there's usually a lot more kills which are, you know, not available, or there's not as many kills which are around to go after, and it takes a bit more skill to actually get them. I mean, obviously, with the advent of missiles, they're slightly different now, but that's the general idea. I think it holds up. Same with like naval, right? In naval, you actually have more of like a damage multiplier RP system than you do just an overall destruction one, which because of how the game mode works. So because of this, depending on what type of mode you're playing, you have different levels of research, and you have different levels of how much you get from each of them, which is why it's so much easier to grind an aircraft in, let's say, you know, air realistic than it is in ground realistic, and also in naval arcade, because there are different levels of difficulty and different things that you expect your aircraft to do. So because of this, if you just made it so you could grind out the whole tech tree with one vehicle playing one game mode over and over again, it would throw the research balance of all of these things all over the place, right? It would mean that grinding out ground vehicles, let's say you're using an aircraft to grind out ground vehicles, you'll grind them out at a ridiculously high rate. But also, if you're grinding out, let's say, an air vehicle in the helicopter mode, like the PvE mode, you're grinding it at an insanely low rate. So this would lead to annoyance, and it would lead to people just kind of only playing whatever was seen as the good game mode in order to get everything researched. So this would lead to problems, because you would kill off game modes by doing it, and they're supposed to be the game modes that people actually, you know, want to play these vehicles with. But they can't play them because everybody is, instead of playing them, grinding out the next new shiny thing in order to play in a different game mode. So instead of having 4 distinct game modes for 4 distinct vehicle types, you now will have one game mode that everybody plays in order to grind out all the new stuff for whatever vehicle type they like to play, and then they'll only play that game mode to play that vehicle type. So it's better to keep it in for those specific vehicle types for that reason. And I know, you know, a lot of people aren't gonna whenever we talk about anything in terms of research, anything that is deemed as negative is just seen as like a horrific thing and shouldn't even be valued or thought about. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why limits like that exist. And it's so you can play different stuff instead of just doing the same thing over and over again and burning yourself out like a crazy person, right? So yeah, that's basically why. Because doing the same things over and over again isn't very fun. Hey Philippe, nice to see you. We're doing the tech talk today. So yeah. Yeah, there was 1k likes on the crate thing, so we'll be opening the crates tomorrow. So we have Stay in a Vilnius. I think bombers would fit better with a fun playing experience if friendly players actually tried to escort them like in real life. But that may not really be realistic. Also, I do think that infiltrators like the B-58 will work in the game. Somehow, I want to see more modern bombers because I want the contemporary interceptors to the game as well. Yeah, that's fair. But I feel like the planes that we have in game already would intercept them pretty well. So I don't think that would work too good. The simple thing about the escorting stuff, I've always liked the idea of the escorting things. I remember people have, well, I mean, it's been brought up since basically the time that War Thunder has started, right? Like the idea of, well, why don't people get score for, you know, escorting bombers or, you know, making sure that they're safe? Well, bots exist. Any passive way of generating income in this game has been nuked because of that, right? Like that's basically it. So think about like getting hit in a heavy tank, or you know, grinding in heli PvE, or being near an enemy in aviation. All of these things have been neutered in terms of RP and SL and everything because people are abusing the systems. Now, this also means that other areas have been improved. It means that you get more SL and more RP for more actions and doing more things. But people look at the negatives, right? So if you get RP or SL from basically just escorting a bomber, there would be so much abuse of that system that it wouldn't even be funny. Because you would just have, let's say, a squad. One person would, you know, spawn in a bomber on the airfield. The other three would just kind of follow them. And then there you go. Instant rewards for 3 people. And they would just get a bunch of it, and then they'd just keep doing that over and over again and rotate. Right? Which is just crazy. Well, there's only one vehicle I don't have out of the crates, and that's the KV-1B. And the reason why I don't have the KV-1B is because I sold it. So yeah, and you also have 4 useless allies because people are grinding the RP. So you now technically are down 4 people out of a maximum of a 16 player thing. So you're down a quarter of your team, and that's if only those guys have it, right? Or if only those guys in that setup were doing it. And then also it means that you're at a huge disadvantage and people are just abusing the system. So it's just it sounds really good on paper, but it just would never work. And it's because the path of least resistance. And it makes me sad, it really does. I wish one of the things that would benefit War Thunder a lot, and not just War Thunder, but general life, is if everybody was honest and everybody did put in the same amount of effort to try and do things and not try and cut corners. But we don't live in that society, and we never will, because humans are flawed. So, turns out we're not robots yet. So, yeah. I do have the IS-7, yeah. I ground out the event when it happened. I can't remember what it was called now. What was the IS-7 event called? Does anybody remember? It's so annoying when people do this because you just can't hit them. because his ping in general is like either a lot higher than mine or a lot lower. You can see how he's like dipping around the air. So no matter where I shoot, it's actually not going to hit where he is because of desync and ping. What if the robots, we don't know it? Then the robots are flawed. So that's not a problem. If it was worse, if X Bomber gets to Y place, the match ends, it would make a bit of sense. But then people would just beeline to that place, and you would have PvE games, which happens already in SM. So, good evening, Penguin Red. Nice to see you. So we have Effie Altis with the So Wise. We do need to do our weekly sermon. They skipped a lot of early jets. Yeah, they did, because early jets are pretty bad. Like, they wouldn't be very fun to play, right? I was looking, like, right, so the Soviets especially, they have so many designs and prototypes from, like, 1945 to 55 that are just straight bad. Like, they're either designed around, like, a faulty missile system, or they're designed with this massive engine, which was supposed to just go as fast as possible in a straight line. Like, there's just so many poor ideas that the Soviets came up with, and also the Americans, when it came with, you know, when you think about stuff like the M4, right? And how that was supposed to work. And it just kind of sucks that, you know, those vehicles were just so bad at what they did. And in War Thunder, they don't really have a place, you know, because whenever they've added a vehicle like that, it's just never really fit properly. So well, you've got to remember when they add in all of these jet bombers, they're not going to be facing those vehicles that, you know, existed in real life. They're going to be facing vehicles which were way better than that. And it's because, you know, they're actually fun to play and people will enjoy them. So yeah, it's something that obviously won't go very well. You'd still love to see those planes in the game, even if they're bad. I'd like to see some of them. Definitely not all of them, though. There's a lot of them in there that I wouldn't really be interested in seeing. All of the vehicles that are designed around faulty missile systems, I'm good, you know? Yeah, I've seen MMM. No, that's a different leagueless mix. This is a new one. Hey Tech, I talked last week about the usual complaint about the Fallout show. I wanted to be the one from the point of view of the old fans as a whole, but personally I have another problem with Bethesda. As you said last week, they have such an amazing world for storytelling, and that is what annoys me the most about them. Instead of coming up with new stuff, they choose to be lazy and regurgitate the same troops, factions, and weapons. Yeah, that's true, actually. For years now, they're creating the same story with different minor changes, or if we're lucky, a new location, and it's boring at this point. Fallout 3, 4, and Fallout Show. Family member goes missing, find family member, find brotherhood, find secret about said family member, finish the story with big unnecessary battle. Brotherhood is the good guys and everyone is happy. Yeah, but you've also just described why people like it. Because it's comfortable and because it's normal. Imagine if the Lord of the Rings show, right? So you know the Rings of Power? Imagine if they just based the story around the movies. I bet you any money, even if it was the same quality, and even if it was like, even if it was, what do you call it? Even if it was like talking about stories which were parallel to the Fellowship stuff, people would have adored it because it's comfortable and it's something they remember from the movies. But because it's talking about stuff which was earlier on, there isn't as much of a connection from people, right? So that's the tough thing with the Fallout show. The reason why, you know, people will find it comfortable and will want more is because it is the same story, and that sucks. But a lot of popular media is like that nowadays. It's just retelling of the same stuff over and over again. Sorry. This right here is the real problem for me. People are sick and tired of the same stuff, and that explains why mods like Fallout London, Mexico are so popular. Like the report of the week once said, my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. I wonder what he's doing nowadays. I haven't watched any of his videos. But then again, they seem to be comfortable enough to release Skyrim 7 times, so I kind of stopped hoping for anything new from them. Anyway, going back to grinding the Persian plane, I wish you and chat good luck with the grind. Yeah, you too, man. The grind shouldn't be too bad, should be okay. But as I said before, think about it. Think about it like this, right? The Fallout show was a great success. Millions of people have now started playing the Fallout games that didn't play it before. You know, they did a bunch of like marketing stuff alongside of it, giving the game away from free, doing a bunch of discounts, and got a bunch of people into it. So even though for us it is not perfect, because it is just rehashing the same stuff and doing the same things over and over again, for the general public, for the people that they're aiming for, it worked, right? Like even Starfield, right? Like even Starfield, which is just you know, sloppy Fallout in space, right? That still has tens of thousands of players playing it. Millions of copies sold. So maybe we're just not maybe we're just not the core demographic, and that sucks. Yeah, so per day still in Starfield, it has 5,000 active players, a single player game. When it came out, it had 145,000 people playing it. It's nuts, you know? Absolute crazy. So yeah. The reason why they do this is because it's easy, which is true. And also, it's comfortable for people. Now, luckily, we can have the best of both worlds, right? We can have people enjoying, you know, stuff which is, you know, additional mods, additional content, and all this stuff. Let's not kid ourselves in believing that the average player is somebody who is modding Fallout 4 and also, you know, doing the Fallout London stuff. Because I saw that story and it was really cool to see, but, you know, that's definitely not what the average person is doing, right? The average person is just wandering around the wasteland and going, "Ooh, oh god, what is that thing? What is a deathclaw?" Like, it's coming towards me, you know? But did Bethesda break even? Well, they must have done, right? Like, you know. I don't know if they're a publicly traded company. I'd have to look. Somewhere Flyboy again. I thought Guardian fixed the player-made air sim matches to where you get no research or SL. No, they didn't. No. That's not the case. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing what people are doing now, so. Because what you can do is you can just do, as I said, you can basically just have an agreement where you're like, nah, we're not going to fight each other. It's all good. Everything's fine and dandy. That's just how it goes. Then we have Y for Tech 566. So I'm going on about the PvE. Well, yes. Just take that guy out. Ooh. So I'm going on about the PvE. Well, yes, have all the models for tanks, ships, helicopters, and planes would put great stress on the engine, but I believe it should be something similar to the normal game modes. But instead of players on one team, it's just a more beefed up AI they already have. Note, I don't mean the AI of the environment planes. I mean the AI that gets names and placed on the scoreboard. And it would allow for maps and scenarios like the Spanish Civil War, Battle of Britain, and Kursk. I mean, sure, but like, the AI is just so bad, man. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, if you've ever played Naval recently, or if you've ever played any game modes where the AI is like on the teams, they're terrible, man. They're awful. They don't do anything, and if they do anything, they just clatter somebody, and it doesn't feel like very useful to do. You know, it doesn't feel great to play against. It's very bang or bust. It's not great. The other problem is it's not just about the servers and them working. It's also people's PCs. So the servers need to hold with all of the models and with everything going on and all the calculations and everything, which is fine. Okay, let's say that happens. It's also people's PCs. The more stuff that goes on in a battle, the PCs have to hold, right? And you already see it in naval. I have a beefy PC, and I have a 2 PC setup, right? The PC that you see running the game, the only thing it does is play the game, okay? It's got a 3070 in it, pretty high-end card. Obviously not massively high-end nowadays, because I didn't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. But at the same time, it's a machine which only plays War Thunder. That's all it does. In naval, with everything maxed out, I can't get above 90 FPS. And that's naval. That's just with naval shooting each other. That's it. In air, I can get like 350, you know, or 450 if nothing's happening. In ground, usually 200, 250. Most people don't have my rig. Most people maybe have a 2000 series. Even like the 1080 used to be the most popular card, even from like, I think a year or two ago. Now I think it's the 2060. So the idea of, you know, people just being able to even run something like that is the problem, right? How? I get 165 FPS with the RX 6650 on high settings 1080. I run 2K, and as I said, that's only in naval. In air and ground, it's fine. I cap my FPS at 120, so I run an i5 with a 1060 GTS, still go strong. Yeah, and it will do. But in a mode like this, where there's a ton of interactions going on, your PC will just break. Because, as I said, as a person who has actually got involved in making these types of maps, in testing them out, in trying them, your PC breaks. Because there's so much stuff going on with it. So it isn't just the servers that have to hold, which they already don't hold in naval, by the way. They already don't hold in it. During the event, we had a bunch of matches where it's connection lost, server died, right? So even if you solve that issue, you need to get to a point, right? You need to get to a point where people's PCs can also handle it. And we are nowhere near that point. Nowhere near it. That's not even like talking about consoles and, you know, the old consoles that still use like the old hardware that can't be replaced, because the game still has to work for them. So yeah. Now the only way I would see it as fair to add a PvE mode that isn't as solid is to chop the rewards in terms of research by about a third. Though in terms of SL, I think it would be the same. So normal match, I believe this would reward a good play PvP. Or not going. I mean, yeah, like the reward stuff. So I'll be honest about the reward stuff. It's nice discussing the reward stuff, but for me, come on, man. The reward stuff is a secondary thought. And hey, Anti-Griefer, nice to see you. I don't like getting caught up on the reward stuff, because the reward stuff is the easiest part to change, right? So you can just change whatever, you know, rewards are pretty easily. So yeah, well, whatever happens, that's fine. The major problem for me is the servers actually holding, your PC holding, and it not getting taken over by bots. Because you know who's great at farming against AI? Humans. You know what's even better at farming against AI once it learns their patterns? Bots. Which is why bots have been used a lot in Air Sim, in Air RB, and even in Naval. Because most of the time, they are not fighting against players. They're fighting against objectives. And if they can be programmed to destroy objectives, which is what they were doing for many years and still continuously they are. I even saw some once again in... I even saw more of them once again while I was playing, you know, like the naval event. It means that it's very easy to take over a game mode like that. and then you're going to have to continuously ban players, and the people who actually want to play it are not going to play it because they don't want to play with a bunch of robots. You know? Why play if you want to use bots? Well, the people who are using bots are using it for certain reasons. Number one, it's to grind out the game, so they don't have to grind out the game, so they just let a program do it for them. Number two is to sell the account to somebody who doesn't want to grind the game and would rather just buy it. Number three is to pump up rewards on different accounts. So that's one of the reasons why they nerfed a lot of the kind of welcome rewards. You used to get rewards on accounts if you did the refer to the friend thing. You still do, but nothing compared to what it was. So what would happen? You may have noticed this actually, because this happened a few years ago. It still does now, but it's not as bad. So what people would do is they would use the refer a friend link. They'd create a new account and they'll grind through Sweden Air. The reason they'll do this is because at rank 4 Sweden Air, you basically have like the T-18. It's super easy to get to, really easy plane to play, and you could do it within like a day, right? So then you'd use that to get to rank 5 Sweden, and then you would start bringing in GE for your main account because you could technically grind on the secondary accounts, which would then, mean that through the refer a friend thing, you'd get GE on your main account. Tons of people did this. A lot of squadron, high squadron like players did this. They would all share accounts, and then they would basically just do a bunch of refer friend stuff. And when they weren't playing in the squadron battles, they would do this to pump up their accounts, so therefore they could get GE, and therefore they could pump it into the vehicles that they wanted to use on those specific accounts. And then what they would do is they would share those accounts between each other, so therefore everybody would be able to pump up those specific accounts in the squadron battles and tournaments to be able to make those accounts better. So that's why you have rules like, you're not allowed to share accounts. If only it was enforced, ever. But that's basically how they did it, right? So that is the stuff you're combating. And it's pretty annoying to deal with. Because every time they make a change to try and combat it, people get annoyed. Rightfully. Because it means that honest players get screwed. But welcome to dishonesty. And welcome to why, most laws are designed for 1 or 2 or 3% of the population instead of the rest. So yeah, fun times. So then we have C76 Caravan. What is your take on the Stop Killing Games initiative that is currently trying to petition the EU? Yeah, I saw that. We actually had a look at it on stream. Though having together 1 million EU citizen votes with individual thresholds also applied for each EU country. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Welcome to the EU. To look at the requiring video game publishers to leave games in a usable status when cutting support to them. Think he'll be successful or fail due to gamers not knowing or not bothering to support, or some other barrier preventing it? We talked about this. I read through it. First of all, there are games out there that don't have publishers. So if you're doing it through the publishers, that's all good. But there are games which don't have publishers, and technically that publisher is the platform, so something like Steam, right? So would you require Steam to keep the game going? I don't know how that would work, but that's kind of a side point, right? So one of the main things, I don't know a single business where when a product is discontinued, they are forced to continue making stuff for that product. So, for example, car engines, right? So car engines, they can bring in new laws, like something which has happened like over and over and over again, right? So they could bring in new laws which outlaw certain types or certain parts of an engine to make it, economically or maybe a bit more cleaner for the environment or whatever you want to class it as. So certain engines now are just banned. The production of new engines is banned. Okay, let's say it's a type of diesel engine, just for like argument's sake. But if you go to pretty much any country, I know about it in Britain. I don't know about it in other countries, but they always legislate on what type of engines are able to be built. And what happens is the moment when they start banning stuff, the price of those things skyrocket because the companies that were producing them before are no longer allowed to produce them after a certain date. They usually say stuff like, in 5 years, you're not allowed to produce this. So it gives the business time to move over to a different threshold. But let's say, for argument's sake, you use one of these engines, okay? And you have no interest in changing the engine, so you're going to stay on the same engine forever. Should that business be obligated to produce parts for your engine, which is going to fall apart over time because it's got wear and tear, even if it loses them money? Right? Now let's apply it to like the video game analogy. So when it comes to single player games, this is a very easy solution thing, right? So you make it so there's a copy of it, it's available to be sold, easy peasy, right? No servers or nothing like that needed. The issue is with games where you need servers or you need a online matchmaking setup. So you are basically saying to the company that produced it or developed it or whatever, that what they have to do is they have to lose money by continuing a service which they don't see as profitable and don't want to do. Right? Or you have to find, I don't know, a charity or something run by the government to keep the service alive in order to run it. Okay? Or you do the other thing, where you allow it open, you make the code open, or you make it so it's abandonware, which has its own issues. Or the other thing that you can do with it is you can make it so private servers can be created on it, right? So that means that the company would be obligated to basically leave it open to private servers. But once again, then you have a conversation about intellectual property. You are telling them that they cannot manage their own product, which they have decided to take off the market. So from like a consumer point of view, yeah, it's awesome because nobody wants anything to die in the online age. There's been so many things that have died. I think this idea should also be preserved for websites. Websites should not be allowed to die. Archiving should be something that happens to everything. So whenever something's edited or changed, you're able to still keep all of the information that was previously there. But from the people who actually have to pay for it point of view, it's a mess. Because you are basically saying to a company, hey, this product that you don't want to produce anymore and you don't want to look after, you are forced to look after. And you are going to lose money on it. And you can't sell it either to anybody. Because now we've artificially lowered the value of it. And also, what happens if that game is then produced into another game? What if elements of that code are used in a future product? Like, how does this all work? So, yeah, it sounds great from a consumer point of view. But from like the government point of view, and from the business point of view, I have absolutely no idea how you set that up. Because it hasn't been done in any other industry where you have to keep something alive. What happens if the company goes full bankrupt? I don't know. I'm guessing when you decide to sell your assets, that means that when the assets get sold, that gets lumped in too. No idea. Which once again decreases the value of it because it just loses money. So I don't know how you do it. It's a confusing thing. It's basically a question for lawyers at the end of the day. You're gonna need to just sit in a room with 20 different people and work out who owns what and who's allowed to do what with it. As I said, from a consumer point of view, it sounds great because you get stuff that exists. Yeah, Game Informer just stopped, didn't they? They were the longest running gaming magazine, and they've just shut their doors. Sucks, doesn't it? They're just gone. So the premise is great. No idea how you do it. I've no idea how you would go around the intellectual property issue. Like, think about War Thunder, right? Okay. So in War, here, I'm just gonna do this so we can see the whole screen. So in War Thunder, right? You have, let's say that they can bypass the login stuff, so you can they keep the servers alive which have your account on, okay? And that's costing Gadget money even if they close the game. What if they just leave this open and that's it? And technically, all of these missions, or at least the vast majority of them, are from Wings of Prey. So what if they shut down War Thunder, and then somebody's like, no, you can't do that, because according to this law, you got to keep it open. And then they go, what do you mean? Let's go buy Wings of Prey. It's got the same, it's got the same core of War Thunder. Same idea. So what do you do? Would that be seen as War Thunder being alive, being around? How would you legislate what is the part of the game that has to survive? Is it the events? Is it the vehicles? Is it the battle pass content? Like, is it the all the item shop stuff? What needs to be preserved? It's so confusing. But yeah, I don't know how it would work. But as I said, from a like consumer point of view, sounds great. I don't understand how you navigate all these questions. Game Informer was shut down by GameStop and its entire website got outright nuked. Jesus. Well, think about War Thunder with its forums, right? Those forums are going to be taken offline pretty soon. Happy Friday, Pierre the Great. Hopefully you're doing good today. Hopefully everything's okay. So yeah, it's a cool idea. I just have absolutely no idea how it works or how it would work. No idea. Then we have Organic Chemistry Junkie again. Honestly, Tech, I don't think RRB generally works for 99% of vehicles. Playable doesn't mean works well. Well, you've used two words there. So you have works, right? So works for 99% of vehicles, and then works well. So you've added context, which I didn't. So we're going to move on. Next one. We have Flyboy again. For what it's worth, I developed a gambling addiction from a different video game. Oh. War Thunder camo chests really were a bad thing for me. So if I could change one thing, it would be for all user-made skins to be available for 700 GE. In their respective vehicle customization folders in the game. No more chests. The vehicles in the chests will go to a battle pass only chest system. I don't care about the market, and I'm okay if it crashes. The market's only good for Gadget, not for the players. Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, I want people to be able to get stuff for a direct way of being able to get stuff. No RNG involved. That's it. Like, it's as simple as that. There's no way around it. That's it. I don't like the fact that gaming has just become a marketplace of RNG. Sucks. Very sad. Hopefully it'll change, but not yet. Oh, by the way, talking about the EU and how fantastic it is, how's all that loot box legislation going on? From like 10 years ago, from a decade ago. How we doing? How we doing, guys? We doing good? Is it are loot boxes and games banned in the EU now? Yeah? Yeah. Alright, good. Alright, awesome. I look forward to, in 10 years, for them to be not banned still. Even though they're seen as predatory and all over the place. But yeah, always fun. Thank you, EU, for saving our bacon by doing absolutely nothing and doing everything that huge, powerful government structures do, which is just waste money at the end of the day. Fun times. I even banned gambling out of games designed for teenagers. Crazy. Who knows, though? Maybe in 10 years. Maybe they can figure it out in 10 years. Thank you for the donation. Legend was Dagon. That's very kind of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. I've not been looking, researching, and fidgeting for 3 hours now. I cannot stop my F-16 from moving when I use my targeting pod with the AGM-65D. What do you mean by, like, moving? Do you mean, like, it's shaking like this? If it's shaking, then it might be a bug, because that happens quite a lot with those types of vehicles. Hey, Crazy Kid, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. But yeah, it might be... They did just change the targeting pod on that thing. So they may have broken it again. So don't be surprised. They tend to break those things quite a lot. So yeah. I remember the last time they broke the targeting pod wasn't too long ago, actually. It's like maybe a week, maybe a month ago. So Roebuck, I don't like all 3 F-14s being under the US tree. That airframe really should be under 2 trees if one is Iranian. I mean, not really. Like I don't like the idea that, you know, different... Just because an F... You have the same airframe, it has to be in different trees. Like, think about the Spitfire, right? There's like 20 Spitfires in the British tree and then like 1 or 2 in other tech trees at most. I think it's much better. I feel like it's much better if nations have an iconic feel to them. And whenever we look at events or whenever we look at things that people don't like, it's usually because of the fact that they're very similar to things that have already existed. So if you just farm out the same stuff to different areas of the game, then it's gonna make people not really that interested in playing specific tech trees. It's one of the big reasons for me that Israel is in such a rough place. Because the experiences you can get in Israel, you can get everywhere else. Which doesn't really help. I'm playing Sim, and when I go into the pod and move it, the plane moves with it when it shouldn't. That could easily be a bug. Because so on one of the F-16s, I think it was the Belgian F-16, they changed its targeting pod, and that could have affected all the other ones. The other thing as well is those types of changes, because they changed where its camera is, usually causes other issues too. So yeah, they might have just busted it over the last day or so. I don't think there should be any other reason why it's not working properly. What is his logic for the Iranian F-14 being in a different tree though? Because he doesn't want the same airframe over and over again in the same tree. That's basically it. The only other logic I've seen for the F-14 going anywhere else, which isn't really logical, is it going to Russia because of current relations between different countries, which is a waste of time. And has always been a waste of time in War Thunder, and will consistently be. Because that's never been a reason why they make certain decisions. The other thing is it has an R-27, so obviously it should go to Russia. Forget about like the 99.999% of the aircraft. It's because it has an R-27. It should go to Russia. Forget about all the other weapons, you know. It's all good, Legend. But yeah, then I saw in the data mine yesterday that they changed the pod, so it may have just bugged it out, man. Which obviously isn't great. And then the last one is... I'm just upset that every PvE mode is made as arcade. I hate that derpy game mode, man. Yes, I wanted mixed battles for tanks and helis and airplanes. Yes, I want long form gameplay, and no, I don't want derpy non-real flight mechanics. Why is that so hard to grasp for Gaijin? I don't think it's too hard to grasp for Gaijin, it's just that you're in the minority. And Setting things up for minorities in terms of games is fine, but you have to understand that it's going to take longer to build because there isn't going to be as much want for it. So if you want something like that built, you have to get enough like-minded people to agree and then also, well, fund it, basically. And for them, they don't see the value in it, right? It's as simple as that. There really is no other way of putting it. If the set of people was there to do it, and it was seen that there was enough people interested in it that they could make it economically viable, then they're going to do it, just like they have done with a bunch of different things over the years. So yeah, I went back to the take on the Stop Killing Games take. You're completely overlooking the part that car manufacturers allow other companies to take on the ability to provide parts for engines or cars. No, I'm not, because here, I'll relay what I said, okay? Let's say you have an engine which is banned. You are not allowed to produce it, right? Because this happened in the UK a few years ago. There was a certain set of diesel engines that were banned from being built anymore because they were seen as uneconomic. They were seen as uneconomic and also bad for the environment. So the government banned it. So it isn't the fact that other car manufacturers can't build it. They're not allowed to. Right? They're not allowed to build it because it's against the law. Right? So in this setup, there is no way you can get replacement parts because they banned you from building them. Right? So it isn't a case of like another company allowing another company to build it. They're not allowed to. So yeah. This is further backed by the right to repair a vehicle. Sorry, I'm talking about Britain. I'm not talking about like other nations. So in the case of video games, if the game is no longer supported, they have no need to restrict the ability of the consumer to own it. They do because it's their intellectual property and they might want to use it in the future. Crusade Fawad, for example. Crusade Fawad, they shut down it, what was it, like a year ago? Maybe a year and a half? And then they brought it back. So during that time, what did they do? What's the point of it? Should they allow the consumer to own it in that year? What about if they want to make a remaster? What if they want to make a HD product? What if they want to take that game code and alter it into something else? E.g. Wings of Prey going into War Thunder. If you open up Wings of Prey, it will literally tell you, as you open it up, that if you want to go and play this game properly, you should download War Thunder, because it's kind of the successor, spiritual successor to it. And that's what they made the game from and into. So what happens with Wings of Prey? Do you still need to keep the online services alive for Wings of Prey? Because they're based on the same code. They're the same game from their core. So what do you do? So yeah, it isn't the case of like other people not being allowed to do it or the right to repair or whatever you want to put it as. If the government decides, right, that you are not allowed to build this thing, you're screwed, right? What do you do in that situation? Hey, Farron Edwards, nice to see you. Not everyone wants to dump a lot of money into a flight stick and pedals for a casual free-to-play game. Most people who do spend a lot of money into flight sticks and all that stuff play DCS or MSFS over War Thunder. Yeah, usually. One of the key great things about War Thunder is its accessibility, right? That's why the mouse aim was so revolutionary. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, as I said, the general concept of the things being around for everything is great. The major question you have to answer is who pays for it. Like who pays for the upkeep, and also who owns the intellectual property. Because if you're not seen as protecting it, then sorry, you lose it, right? So I don't know how that works in that setup. I don't know how they would do it. It's one of those very confusing parts of it, and I don't know. This is a conversation for lawyers, not for me. Any tips to get good at AirIB? Understand where people climb. That's pretty much it. Well, that's the end of the tech talk portion, I think. There isn't a ton more to go through. Any of you guys have any questions from the streams before we wrap up and continue playing War Thunder, getting the event done, and also doing the page of history? We play arcade way too much. You know what's funny about arcade? It's the most played game mode. Weird, right? Weird to think about. Gets the noggin jogging. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff to look forward to in War Thunder over the next period of time. Ton of things going on, and a lot of stuff to have a bit of fun with. And on stream today, we are going to go through another set of leaks and work out what's kind of going on. But yeah, look after yourselves. See you later. We'll continue streaming. The Tech Talk is over. Bye-bye.